To readily identify the value of a resistor, manufacturers employ a variety of techniques. The method used is often dictated to a large degree by constraints such as physical size, together with the cost and ease of manufacture in mass production. In the case of very small resistors, it would be very difficult to print the identifying characteristics. The problem is further complicated when the resistor is mounted in a circuit. Resistors with large surface area, however, readily lend themselves to this printing method. The method used in the intermediate size range often depends also on the individual manufacturer's preference. All identification techniques contain information on the value of the resistor and its allowable tolerance from this value. Special types also allow for incorporation of additional information such as power dissipation, voltage rating, or type of construction. Low-power cylindrical construction resistors, usually with film or composition elements and containing radial or axial leads, employ a standard internationally accepted code of coloured bands or dots as identification. These bands are located around the cylindrical body of the resistor toward one end. To read this code, the resistor must first be orientated in the correct position. The end with the coloured bands closest to it must be placed towards the left. The code is then read from the left toward the right-hand side of the resistor. Each of these colours represents a numerical value according to the standard resistor colour code. This code and how to read it should be committed to memory if its frequent use is envisaged. The band on the extreme left of the resistor indicates the value of the first digit in the resistor value. The second coloured band indicates the second digit. The third band indicates the decimal multiplier, or the number of zeros following the first two digits. The fourth coloured band represents the tolerance limits of the resistance value. The tolerance of resistors is usually expressed in percentage form and indicates the allowable range in which the coded value can be expected to be found. For example, a resistor with yellow, violet, red and gold bands in sequence is read as 4,700 ohms with a tolerance of 5%. Its value could thus be in the range 4,935 to 4,465 ohms. Often, the fourth identifying band is omitted from the marking system. In such cases, the tolerance is read as 20%. Also, with very low resistance values, the decimal multiplier is a gold or silver band. These represent multiplying factors of 0.1 and 0.01 respectively. Values below 10 ohms sometimes are represented by only two coloured bands. Precision resistors with tolerance values in the 1 and 2% range require an extra digit in the code prior to the decimal multiplier to accommodate the increased accuracy. This is accomplished by the addition of a fifth coloured band to the marking code. The marking is now read as the first three bands representing the three digits respectively. The fourth band is now the decimal multiplier, and the tolerance being indicated by the fifth coloured band. Often, with several bands on the body of the resistor, the code is not clearly orientated toward one end or the other. As the most commonly used resistors are 5 and 10% tolerance, the presence of a gold or silver band at one end will give an indication of the correct orientation. The colour of the resistor body is used by most manufacturers as a means of indicating the type of resistor. Carbon film resistors have a very light tan body, while carbon composition have a somewhat darker medium tan colour. Metal film resistors have a brown body colour. The metal glazed types employ a light blue colouring. The high stability 1 and 2% types can be distinguished by the salmon pink body colouring, or fifth coloured band. Prior to the universal acceptance of the banded system of marking resistors, two major methods were in frequent use. These were the body-end band and body-end dot systems. In the body-end dot system, the body colour of the resistor represented the first digit. The colour of the end, the second digit. A coloured dot was placed midway along the body of the resistor, representing the decimal multiplier, or number of zeros in the value. The resistor tolerance was represented by a coloured spot, partially covering the end of the resistor opposite the coloured end. The body and band system of marking also represented the first digit in the resistor value by the body colour and the second digit by a coloured end. The decimal multiplier, or number of zeros, was however represented by a coloured band encircling the body of the resistor and placed slightly closer towards the coloured end. The tolerance here is given by a coloured band located on the opposite end to that with the colour. This band was much narrower than the width of the end colour. The omission of this coloured band, or the end spot in the case of the body and dot system, indicates the tolerance of the resistor to be 20%. A third system of marking was employed by some manufacturers, although its use was not widespread. A system of dots or bands that did not completely encircle the body of the resistor was used to indicate the value and tolerance. This method of labelling was usually confined to radial lead types or upright mounting style resistors. In the case of upright mounting resistors, the coloured code was located closer toward the upper end of the resistor body. The colour closest this upper end, representing the first digit of the value, the next colour down the second digit, and so on. In all these identification methods used, the numerical value to colour relationship is identical, being represented by the standard resistor colour code. Direct marking is a method of identification usually reserved for resistors with sufficient surface area to allow the printing of information on them in a size large enough to make it clearly legible. For this reason, it is more commonly used on power resistors with a dissipation greater than 2 watts. This style of marking, as well as including the resistance value and tolerance, often has a power dissipation figure and a manufacturer's code. The manufacturer's code contains such information as the type of resistor construction and a date code to indicate the date of manufacture. This type of labelling has the disadvantage that it often requires the printing of a decimal point. Because of its small size, this minute dot sometimes disappears both in the printing process and in subsequent handling. Circuit diagrams also suffer from the same problem of the omitted decimal point. A 4.7 ohm resistor, for example, would be read as 47 ohms with the decimal point missing. This confusion was removed by the adoption of an internationally accepted code system of notation which eliminated the decimal point by placing a letter in the position where the point would have been. This acceptance of letters and numbers in a suitable combination is the basis of a system of resistor identification called the Typographic marking code. The Typographic marking code is simply a further extension of the direct marking method, once again applying to resistors with sufficient surface area to take the required printing. The major difference in the two methods is that in the typographic code marking, letters replace the numerical values for tolerance and the decimal point in the resistance value is eliminated. A manufacturer's code is still employed, as is the use of a logo or trademark. Resistors have value multiples of ohms, thousands or kiloohms, and million or megohms. By convention, the letters accepted to represent these are the capital letter R for ohms, the small letter K for kiloohms, and capital M for megohms. Thus, a 2.2 ohm resistor is now written 2R2, a 2.2 kilo ohm becomes 2K2, and 2.2 megohm 2M2. In the case of very small resistances where a zero occurs before the decimal point, a zero is now placed prior to the letter R. For example, 0.2 ohms is written 0R2. With even smaller resistance values, the zero before the letter is omitted altogether. In this case, 0.02 ohms is written R02 and 0.002 is written as R002. The typographic code represents the resistance tolerances of 1, 2, 5, 10 and 20% by a series of standard letters. The letter F representing 1%, G the 2%, J the 5%, K 10% and the 20% tolerance by the letter M. The additional information in the form of the manufacturer's code often includes such specifications as voltage rating and special characteristics pertaining to that particular resistor type. Because of the several million possibilities, a manufacturer would find it difficult to produce and market a range of resistors that would include every possible value. On examination of a variety of resistors, it becomes evident that only specific values are produced. These resistors are called preferred values. The basic preferred values series spans a decade of resistance, the higher decade values being achieved by shifting the decimal place to the right and the lower values to the left. There are many preferred number series manufactured, the E6, E12 and E24 being in most common use. The E6 has 6 preferred values per decade, the E12 has 12 and 24 in the E24 series. It is the specified tolerance that determines what values are manufactured for a decade. If we consider 10% tolerance resistors in the decade 10 to 100 ohms, the 10 ohm resistor could have values ranging from a lower limit of 9 ohms to an upper limit of 11 ohms. There would therefore be very little point in manufacturing any other resistance values in this range. If we now consider an 11 ohm resistor with the same tolerance, it will have a lower limit of 9.9 and an upper limit of 12.1. To minimize the resulting large overlap that would occur, a value of 11 ohms is not manufactured. The next highest value resistor is 12 ohms with limits of 10.8 and 13.2 ohms. This still has a small overlap but is acceptable, as to reduce the overlap to zero would involve a departure from a system of whole number values. The 12 ohm resistor is therefore manufactured as the second value in the series. By extension of this theory of minimum overlap, we arrive at a series of 12 preferred values per decade for a 10% tolerance. This is known as the E12 series. Numerous decades in this series are manufactured. By examination of the steps in value in the series, it can be observed that a difference of 10 to the power of 1/12 exists for the 10% E12 series. Likewise, 10 to the power of 1/6 for the 20% E6 and 10 to the power of 1/24 for the 5% E24 series. The numbers in this case are rounded off for convenience to 2 significant figures. A further increase to 2 and 1% in tolerance yields a series of resistors used in high precision applications. These high stability, close tolerance resistors have 48 and 96 values per decade respectively, and is known as the E48 and E96 series. By way of summary, identification methods fall into 3 categories: that of direct marking, typographic code, and color coding. In typographic form, the letters R, K, and M are standardized to represent respectively ohms, kiloohms, and megohms. The letters F, G, J, K, and M representing percentage tolerances of 1, 2, 5, 10 and 20%. The colour to value relationship is represented by the internationally accepted colour code. The resistance values manufactured conform to several mathematical variations of a function called the E series.